Sam.
Stop, Frodo!
Sam says,
Oh no!
stupid fat hobbit.
This video is brought to you by Umami Friends! If you're looking for the feeling of a card game mixed in with tableau building, where your tableau are tons of cool recipes with abilities, this is it, as you are the chef. Not only does it look absolutely cute and makes me very hungry while playing, but the combos you can do in building recipes and comboing buys together is great. You guys know me, I come from a TCG background, and I definitely think it scratches the card game itch. Like, there's tons of cute asymmetric characters to choose from, which really change the game. Like Frank the Frog, get Omega Burger to win the game, is a hilarious actuality, and requires thinking to properly set up before you get counterplayed. Umami Friends is constantly expanding, and there's already tons of variants for 2 to 4 players, for the easygoing to the most die-hard competitive groups. We actually have a shelf-side plays made for it too, so if you're interested, you can check that out, or in the Kickstarter in the link below. This is Lord of the Rings inside the Seven Wonders Duel system. Oh my goodness gracious, how are they combining Civ drafting building into now fighting over Middle Earth? Lord of the Rings Duel throws you into Middle Earth, as you kind of fight, yes, kind of fight over regions. Move the Fellowship, ally the 6 factions in the world, all through the Free People versus Sauron, just drafting cards every turn. And it's only 30 minutes. We'll be throwing in some experience from all these games on screen, so now let's quickly how to play. The goal is to win in one of 3 ways. If you get any of these, the game immediately ends. 1, be everywhere on the board. 2, collect 6 different race, let's just call them faction symbols. 3, complete the hunt for the ring. Either Frodo and Sam get to Mount Doom, or the Nazgul capture those sneaky hobbitsies. This is all mostly done by buying cards from the middle. So you'll eventually have a bunch of cards in front of you. Every turn you have one of 3 options. 1, do the main thing, which is buy a card from the middle that's uncovered, paying costs on the bottom. If there's a skill icon as a cost, you need that skill. Otherwise, you pay 1 money per missing skill. Oh, by the way, you move up the Fellowship by getting this ring. Action number 2, discard an uncovered card. And you get money equal to the round, so round 1 you get 1 money. 3, buy a landmark. Its costs are mostly tons of skills, and landmarks give strong things. Once the last card from a chapter is gone, you just deal out the next chapter and keep playing. Oh, also, if you get 2 matching of these faction symbols, or 3 different ones, you get a cool passive that you draw from tiles. So now troops, every time you see the symbol, you spawn troops on a location on the card. If there's troops already there, you fight. Troops just cancel out each other 1 for 1. The same goes for moving. If you get this to move, you move 1 troop 1 space, and if there's something there, you fight. Fortresses, which get placed through buying landmarks, can't die via combat, so they can exist with enemies. Finally, if the last card of the last chapter is removed, and no one has won the game yet, you just see who is in more regions, so here the shadow bad guys win the game. Pros! Component pros, this is definitely a good looking game. Art on cards, landmarks, and the wood style map all look awesome. Golem on cards, fighting on cards, Happy Dwarf on cards, backs of cards, all looks good. And there's this horizontal journey from the Shire to Mount Doom, how clever. Graphic design on cards all look great, it is 7 Wonders styled. Really easy to tell what opponent has drafted. Oh, and shout out to this Fellowship track, you slowly move up the plastic piece or the Nazgul on it. It is really easy to show a story. Go Frodo, go. Army and Fortress pieces are all double-sided printed with weapon and shield and are easy to differentiate on the board. Lastly, there's an insert with plastic baggies, everything fits away super nicely in slots. Rulebook also good, so now let's go over some gameplay pros where there's some good 7 Wonder isms that are also in here. Cards are well connected and that getting a weak one now will get you something for free later on. Discarding something for money is easy and quick counterplay. Also, you might want to buy now or discard to buy something better later. And there's a controlled randomness of predicting what cards are face down as you scan half the draft. Then if you predict the face downs are bad for your opponent, you're safe to take the card on top. Now for what makes this game super groovy, Tolkien unique, the board. Having a board to fight over adds a lot of flavor and visual intuitiveness, cause troops. It also means that the endgame is no longer VP counting, it's just that area controlled is what matters. So you can always see who's winning or losing, whereas in the original, you just tug one thing back and forth and a reset every round. And how the map works in game is smooth. It's simple to attack with 1-to-1 trades, with plenty of movement late game to make positioning adjacencies matter. And fortresses being mostly permanent as they coexist with troops means that you can have threat somewhere even if someone has a bunch of troops trying to turtle. And so that means you always have to pay attention to landmarks to see which areas you're okay with your opponent having a fortress in. And then remember how there's 3 ways to win, so you can't always just tunnel in on this. If you want to tunnel in on this, you have to make sure you can close out the game, because if you can't end the game early, well then your opponent was safe to get these ring cards for Fellowship Progress, or these green cards for faction alliances, and these are irreversible progress. And going for these wins is tricky because you have to know when's the right time to all in on going for them because there's only so many of these cards in the game. So if your opponent discards these cards, you got to make sure you can pivot back to focusing on the board. Then for progression pros, just like Seven Wonders, all income and cost things ramp up as chapters go on, which feels good. Every chapter has a spike in power level, namely the third act getting the movement cards and big ring move. The Alliance token spike is also satisfying as you get passives like making a red card buys give you another ability, or actually any color of card can get buffed. There's 18 of these to give cool spikes as you progress, as well as add to replayability. Heck, there's even a wizard perk to look through the discard and grab a card. Thanks, Gandalf. Oh yeah, replayability. Well, the map is always the same, but when you set up the cards for each chapter, there's gonna be 3 cards left over, so the pot's gonna be slightly different and there's some mystery behind it. You're really gonna be choosing which secondary win con after the map to do based off what cards are in the chapters, and what alliance effects you get. If you get this human buff to make money grabbing also give you a ring, I think you know what's more possible now. And this game runs really true to time of 30 minutes because cards will just run out, it can't drag. Probably the most analysis paralysis comes over deciding which landmarks to buy as their costs are pretty tricky to save up for. Also, they're very pivotal, so you don't want your opponent to buy one that you wanted. And then more thinking can come from seeing which cards your opponent will take as you move up the stack of each chapter. Cons! There's only one player aid. Why is there not another one? Oh, also the player aid not showing the landmark art is weird as it lists the name instead, which hilariously that name is not on the landmark. Is the name a last minute addition because they forgot theme? But before more on theme, let's go into gameplay cons, starting with this token. This is an elf ally token passive, and it's just way too good if you RG into it early game, like chapter 1. Because being wild for any skill is massive value if you just use it again and again, turn after turn. Maybe it should have been only half the symbols listed, or maybe you can only use it every other turn. Next gameplay con, the quest for the ring track feels a bit odd. There's only 4 benefits on this, with only 2 remarkable ones being get another turn and delete a fortress. But the others, getting money in one troop, are pretty meager and mostly uninteresting. This means that it just feels bad to pursue this in such a short game unless you know you have a great chance of approaching the end or completing it. To make it more interesting, maybe the more you moved up on the track, you would unlock some sort of passive, like an extra discard around, or more troops. But again, the game is so short and simple, it's hard to say what this would be. And then, do you see this 3 ring card in chapter 3? It means that you technically can shoot past a fortress space to win the game. So it's really efficient to win the game through this, but it feels off as you're not getting a huge benefit that both players were eyeing. Oh, also both Fellowship and Nazgul tracks are exactly the same, which isn't the most thematic, but that gets us to, yes, how this game isn't actually that thematic despite there being a board to fight over, and then also this Fellowship quest for the ring track. This stems from how both sides have to be able to buy every card, which is the same output per player. So you can have games where the supposed outnumbered Free People's armies buy a bunch of military cards early and they're just swarming the board over those poor outnumbered orcs and goblins? Huh? Another one is how both sides can get these race alliances. But are you sure Sauron's going up to the hobbits and elves and making alliances? Maybe, but while the board is being swarmed against him, I mean, possibly not. This is also just consequence of simplicity. Getting alliance is just getting a single card. Fighting is always just troops just canceling out each other. They both die. Or how a bunch of troops can coexist with an enemy fortress. Yeah, this game is 30 minutes and trying to be an entire trilogy of story, so I get it. It's hard to achieve this. So maybe the scope of the game could have been reduced, like maybe it's just the 3rd book and then you have troops starting out around Gondor, already post to fight Mordor? In fact, both sides actually play really similar. The main difference is that Sauron starts the game and so has less money, and Mordor is slightly harder to get to because it has 2 adjacent territories as opposed to 3 for Anor. And it's crucial for free people to want to militarily grab Barad-dûr, so plop, they drop a fortress of Mordor. So who cares how many troops are there, ha 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 ha. Oh, also Barad-dûr is insta-buy in chapter 3 because you go through the chapter 3 discard and get any of those for free. So the most gameplay meaning moment would be maybe allying with the chapter 3 Ents, so you can destroy one that's maybe Isengard. I hope this is setting your expectations. Hilariously enough, the end can tie, which feels the least Middle-earth thing of all. Like imagine the free people and Sauron just shaking hands and going like, oh yeah, we're just gonna live peacefully together. Oh yes, of course, we can share the ring. It says here in the contract, every 2nd weekend, it goes to you, and then you have to promise to return that ring to me every Sunday night unscathed, right? This would just not be up Sauron's alley. This doesn't feel Middle-earth at all. Could they have come up with at least some tiebreaker, like money or certain cards controlled? Scoring! For a recommended score, this is gonna get a 7 out of 10. It is good. Side graded from its predecessor, it's a little bit more unga bunga, and now you don't have to add up victory point things in your head. You don't have to worry about buying resources your opponent can produce, because that's not in this game. It's less mathy, you just look at where you're winning or losing on the board, and then you can move up the Fellowship in chapters 2 or 3 if you think you can win through that. It's skirting around some area control ideas with some tug of war going on in now 7 regions where troops can move adjacently, so positioning kind of matters. But ultimately, this is a rigid Euro where where you're mostly grabbing cards turn after turn until each chapter runs out, then repeat. Like the game is almost never going to end in chapter 2 because the 2 final green symbols are only in chapter 3. Both sides play almost identical with no special rules, and you're just taking cards from the middle for both players. While landmarks have personalities and randomly drawn passives change the game, they don't really change the gameplay loop that much. And that's okay because it's only 30 minutes. If you mess up and your opponent gets the mostly unkillable fortress in your starting region, you might already know you're gonna lose a region counting endgame, and then you're just kind of going through the motions until you know you lose. But other times, the endgame and the souped up chapter 3 can be really tense, as you do feel like you're moving troops around in a draft to fight to the end, with the quest of the ring threat being real. Yeah, I would definitely still say that the theme meaning gameplay was not so much a priority. It was rather just having this area control with drafting work with some Middle-earth lightly splashed around it. Still, Lord of Duel is a very streamlined and beautiful way to enjoy a morsel of Middle-earth. There's a lot of reason to be hyped as you see the board and the Fellowship moving up, but don't be fooled by the rulebook flavor text. It doesn't really feel like the Shadow are always attacking and free people always defending, as opposed to this game that takes almost 30 minutes to set up. Lord of Duel gets clumped together with this game in that they're chasing this War of the Ring epicness hype, the ultimate battle of good versus evil. Yes, there are many fans that want this, and maybe some just like the idea of it, because in these shorter games with much simpler gameplay, there is compromises. My personal score is going to be a 6 out of 10. I have an above average time with this. For reference, 7 Wonders Duel is a probably 5 out of 10 for me because it's satisfying enough with some ramping, and then there's some counterplay, but not that much, and ultimately it just feels dull. Reason A is that drafting amongst 2 players isn't that interesting, especially with cards being simple and not passed around, and B, the game is just super dry. So now B is definitely solved, because me liking Lord of the Rings, but yeah, this is very much a rigid Euro that doesn't leave me insanely hyped to repeat. Games like this peak on the 4th play when I'm very familiar with every chapter and the power level of everything. For instance, I know that there's 2 gold cards in chapters 2 and 3, so I don't take those yellow boosting passives too late in the game. There's not really any real hype moment for me to look forward to in future games. Like, yay, I bought a landmark, so a fortress suddenly spawns, or I just airdrop more troops here. If I'm going for green cards, it feels painfully obvious, I get counterplayed on that. Just some more subtlety and players hiding information from each other would be nice here. It just feels like a Lord of the Rings buzzkill. There's a map and troops and passives, but it doesn't really stick any landing because it's so fast. Like I see Gandalf, does he do something? Nope, okay, maybe in the uncommon case you're pushing for green card victory endgame, and then he grants a one-time use thing because wizards' passes are different. Like Helm's Deep is a landmark, yes, but when I'm playing it doesn't feel like one, it just feels like symbols. Like, the game looks beautiful, but this is really one of those Euros that everything just ends up getting reduced to symbols or colors of cards. And so the gorgeous art feels like a waste. If we were doing something with the cards after buying them, that would do something, like what if you could push the Nazgul back? But that's not this game's scope. For me to be more excited here, there either needs to be more initial variability, like different maps, different decks of cards, or for the combat system to be more fleshed out with higher asymmetry so I can get deep with it. Anyways, I know this 30-minute mark is really accessible for a lot of you guys out there, so yeah, don't let my crazy heavier taste influence you there. That was Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth. Yes, thank you to our patrons for making videos like this possible. We got all you guys over there. Let me know what you think of this game. It's been really popular on BGG, so curious to see how it gets viewed as time goes on. Also, thank you to our Mad Lads Cardboard, and remember to like, comment, subscribe. See you guys.